Section 5.6, looking at proving triangles congruent by angle side angle and angle angle side, which will give us our 5 different ways to prove triangles congruent. So our first one is angle side angle. And it says if 2 angles and the included side of one triangle are congruent to 2 angles and the included side of a second triangle, then the 2 triangles are congruent. So if we look, we have angle A, side AC, and angle C. So that the side for angle side angle will always be the side connecting the 2 angles. So angle A matches up with angle D. AC matches up with DF. And angle C matches up with angle F. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF by angle side angle. Okay. Do watch how the angles are marked. You could see this similar picture where the 2 are marked at F and the 1 is at D. And then this statement here, the 2 triangles would still be congruent, but it would be FED instead of DEF. So watch how it's marked. Then our next one is angle angle side. Okay, so now I have 2 angles and the side that is not in between them. Okay, so here I have angle angle side. Okay, and it doesn't matter if which direction you go. So if DE was marked, I would have angle angle side. So I can go clockwise or counterclockwise as I'm going around the shape, but I want my 2 angles and then my side. Okay, so angle A matches with angle D, angle C matches with angle F, and BC matches with EF. So then triangle ABC matches with triangle DEF by angle angle side. So example 1, we're looking to see if we can say our triangles are congruent. And we're specifically using angle side angle and angle angle side here, but if something else worked, that would be fine. It just won't. So A, I have 2 angles here, I have 2 angles here. I can mark vertical angles, right? I can mark angles here. That's not really helpful though, because we're not going to be able to prove triangles congruent by angles. All triangles add up to 180. These be similar, which we'll get to later, but they're not congruent based on that. I don't have any sides marked. The only way I can mark sides that aren't marked is if they give me information about the sides or if it's reflexive. So that A is just going to be no. Okay. B, if we come down here to B, right, we have these 2 angles, which match these 2 angles. The angles up top match. And then this side, I can mark, and I can say that by reflexive, right? So this is yes by angle angle side. And then C, I have an angle and I have a side, and then I can mark the angles here by vertical angles. So this is yes, and I have angle side angle. So then flipping our paper over, there we go. We're looking to see, can STW and VWT be proven congruent? Okay, so same type of thing we were looking at on the last ones. Now here we have overlapping triangles. So if your triangles are overlapping, make sure you're looking at what triangles you're doing. Like we could do SUT and VUW, right? But we're looking at STW, right? And VWT as we're looking at these. So we're looking at these right triangles here, right? So I have the angles up top that match, right? I have the angles at T and W that match. Now watch, that's the 90 degrees because STW is here. And if it helps on some of these, sometimes it might help to draw at least one of them out to see what you're looking at. You have STW, right? So I have the 60 and the 90. Then these two triangles overlap and they share side TW. Now one it's TW, one it's WT. That's why the letters are flipped up here. All right, but that means this side is congruent to both shapes. So that gives me this here, right? So now I have angle, angle, side. So that works. When we're looking at the other one, we have the congruent angles here and here. We have the 90 degrees here and here. And they share, again, share a side. So that's reflexive property. And then that gives me angle, side, angle. Now we're going to get into doing some proofs with these. The proofs are exactly the same thing we've been doing. The only difference is now we're stating it out in words instead of just marking it. So example 3, we're trying to prove that NMK is congruent to LKM. All right, so again, we have the larger triangles that are overlapping there. We're given that NKM is congruent to LKM, and we're given that angle L is congruent to angle N. And again, to see this, to see which one it is down here, actually I'll draw this out later. I would suggest drawing at least one of those out as you're doing it, so it's easier to see what you're doing, especially as you get used to it. Right? So I start off with my given. We marked our angles that are congruent. Again, these overlap. So I have the side KM that matches. So KM is congruent to KM by reflexive. Right? That gives me 3 markings. So I now know my triangles are congruent. The question is, and most of these that we're doing, we'll use the ones we're just going over, but technically at this point it can be any of the things, any of the 5 ways we have to prove triangles congruent. If you have trouble seeing it with how it's drawn, a good idea is to redraw out one of these triangles without it overlapping. So I have N, M, and K. So N is marked. The M is not. The marking down here is in the LMK triangle. The K is marked, and I have this side. So that means that these triangles are congruent by angle, angle, side. Example 4. They give me angle T is congruent to angle W, and TV is congruent to WV. Right, so that's my given that I wrote down. It's already marked, so I have 2 markings. I need one more. In this case, I don't have any sides that match up, but I have the vertical angles at V. Remember, there's more than one angle at V. I need to name it with 3 letters. So I have UVT, congruent to XVW. Okay? And I know that by vertical angles. So that's this angle is congruent to this angle. Anyways, again, either of these could be reversed. So TVU, WXV. It is a good idea. U and X are supposed to match up. So it's a good idea to put those in the same spot. It's not something I would take off for, but it's a good habit to get into. It'll make things easier as we go along. So then I know my triangles are congruent. So I'm writing what I'm trying to prove. Triangle TUV is congruent to triangle WXV. And then I'm looking at how it's marked, what one of my 5 things are. So angle, side, angle. And just as a refresher, since I mentioned the 5 things, remember we started with side, side, side to prove triangles congruent. Then in 5.5 we did side, angle, side, and hypotenuse leg. which is our 90-degree triangles. And then we have, today we added in angle, angle, side, and angle, side, angle. All right, so that is my 5 ways to prove triangles congruent. Then turning the page, we have 2 proofs on here. If you look closely, they look almost exactly the same. There's a reason for that. We'll talk about when we get to the second one. So example 5, I'm given that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. I'm given that PQR is congruent to SRQ. Right? And I'm trying to prove PQR is congruent to SRQ. Okay? So again, make sure you're looking at those triangles. Now they didn't mark my stuff here, so angle 1 and angle 2 are these two. Right? The smaller angles in that corner. PQR is in the large angle. And SRQ is this large angle. Right? So I have 2 angles. And then they share this side at QR, right? So I have QR congruent to QR by reflexive. And then I can say my triangles are congruent. Triangle PQR is congruent to triangle SRQ. And again, if you have trouble seeing this, draw one of these 2 out and look at how you marked it. Just don't use the markings from the other triangle. But in this case, I have angle, I have this side, and then I have that large angle. So angle, side, angle. The next one is on here to lead us into our last lesson of the chapter 5-7. Or the last one we'll be doing. I think we skipped a section. If you notice, the only difference in this proof is what I'm trying to prove. Instead of proving the triangles congruent, I'm trying to prove 2 sides congruent. This is what we're going to be getting into tomorrow. So if you look here, this proof 1 through 3 is exactly the same. So we're going to start by proving triangles congruent, and then we're adding in a step. Right? So what we're looking at in section 5-7 will let us refresh our proving triangles congruent, and then we're going to add in a step. So for what we're doing right now, if you see something here that is not a triangle, you start by proving the triangles congruent, and then you add in a step. And we'll look at that in more detail tomorrow. And that is the end of section 5-6, and we now know all our ways to prove triangles congruent.